I'm Lindsay.
And I'm Sarah, and together we're the co-founders of Whale Tales, a living library of cetacean stories.
Today, it's mailbag time!
Hooray!
So sit back and enjoy as we dive right in.
It's mailbag. It's mailbag time.
Wow.
Yep. Thanks everybody for sending in your awesome cetacean questions. Much appreciated, and we're very excited to answer them.
Yeah.
Woo.
Okay, so our first question comes from Lisa Anderson, a patron. Thank you so much, Lisa. Her question is, I've been thinking about dorsal fins, why some whales have huge dorsal fins, like adult male orcas, and some have little ones, like humpbacks, and some have none at all, like belugas. I'd love to hear more on that topic. Starting at the small, or the none at all, like belugas and narwhals, they are specifically adapted similar. We talked about this with bowheads, right? This is ringing a bell.
Yeah, we did.
Or on the Big Miracle episode recently, we talked about whales in the Arctic who don't have dorsal fins. And that is to help break through the ice. And if they had big dorsal fins, they wouldn't be able to go up through the ice at all. And so, yeah, so that's one of the reasons why they have small ones. But then the big ones, like killer whales, there's definitely sexual dimorphism between males and females. You will have seen if you look at any photos of killer whales, especially, and then also size differences in males between residents and bigs and other ecotypes of killer whales. Some of the bigs, dorsal fins are absolutely bonkers in height. We're not entirely sure, but it might have something to do with mate selection of who has the biggest dorsal fin. I actually just saw a post today, because we're recording on Valentine's Day, about L41 Bega, who's sired at least 21 offspring, and he had a giant dorsal fin. That's why his name is Mega. So there we go. Some correlation. But yeah, there are some trade-offs. Speed and maneuverability, of course. If your dorsal fin is super large. So another trade-off is thermoregulation, of course, because that's the part of your body that has to stay the appropriate temperature that you need it to be. So that's something that you have to spend energy on. So hopefully this big dorsal fin you have to keep warm helps you make a lot of babies.
Yeah, or catch food.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a really cool synthesis in a link that we'll put in the show notes, an article called Dorsal Fins from Killer Whales to Narwhals.
So from the biggest to the nothingest. One other thing we can add is just like, what is the function of a dorsal fin in particular? So regardless of whether it's huge or small, ultimately a dorsal fin is just to help stabilize the cetacean as it's traveling through the water. It functions like the rudder of a boat. It kind of like helps you stay upright while you're going. But, you know, the speed at which you travel and the maneuverability that you need, evolutionarily speaking, would impact how large that grew within the confines that Lindsay mentioned.
Yeah, and then, you know, something like a humpback, they have giant pectoral fins that help with stability. So then they probably don't need as big of a dorsal fin because they've got two giant sideways stabilizers. So
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So cool. Oh, so much variety. Okay. Our next question comes from Rusty. And she's wondering, with the quieter oceans, especially during COVID or since COVID, are they more talkative? And the answer to that is not really. Yeah, so through COVID, vessel traffic went down, overall ocean noise dropped down, with some studies that we can sort of cite in the show notes that show that recorded noise was over half as loud as the 2018 and 2019 recorded levels. And we also know that vessel noise changes cetacean behavior. So that means they need to be closer together to vocalize. They can also be heard repeating themselves, basically, like more frequent calls that sound the same. And it can also increase the stress hormone cortisol in their bodies. So the answer for Rusty's question in particular is we haven't really seen anything specifically that they were more talkative, but it would have been easier for them to talk. Absolutely. And also easier, I guess, for scientists to hear them, but also harder because of COVID, other reasons.
Yeah. Yeah, there's actually a really good study about 9/11 because that was a much shorter time period when there was no vessel traffic in the waters around on the East Coast at all, completely.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of studies done then because it was easier for scientists to go out and do things at that point. But those studies, again, also took like 15 years for them to reach my eyes. So who knows what things we'll learn from that, whatever amount of time it was that everything was shut down.
We'll link in the show notes. There's an article about sort of general environmental impacts of COVID-19 and not just on the oceans, but it's available for free and it's really interesting. And like sort of the scope of the changes and impacts that we're seeing.
Hooray! Our next question comes to us from Amanda on Instagram, and she asked, which whale has the coolest teeth? Now, this is obviously a subjective question. So, instead of me just arbitrarily deciding, since I'm the one answering this, which whale has the coolest teeth, I am going to propose 3 options for consideration. Okay. And then each of us can vote and see how we feel. So my proposals are ginkgo-toothed beak whales.
Yeah, obviously.
Which we have spoken about before in our beaked whale episode. But for those of you who didn't listen to that or who are new listeners, hi, welcome. We're nerds. And second, ginkgo-toothed beak whales have teeth that look like ginkgo leaves, which are a very, very, very cool plant. I have one in my front yard, but that's not the only reason I love them. And the leaves are kind of like butterflies. They're beautiful, and their teeth are therefore also really cool. So that's my first option for consideration. My second option for consideration are specifically offshore orcas.
Mm-hmm.
And their teeth being cool because they don't have them much anymore.
They shave them down because of all their sharks.
Because all the sharks.
Yeah, all of the sharks. So again, if you aren't super familiar with offshore killer whales, one of their largest prey sources are sharks. Sharks have very tough skin, similar to sandpaper, because it's covered in little teeth-like structures called dentricles. And so offshore killer whale teeth are sanded down over time to the point that adults have just nubbins. They end up looking like really ragged molars.
Yeah.
Which are not what whale teeth usually look like. So that's my second option for consideration. And my final option for consideration is the narwhal.
That was that was my guess also.
Specifically because the narwhal's tusk is their tooth. And I mean, they're a unicorn. So
yeah.
I mean, Amanda's question is teeth plural. So I'm going to go with ginkgo-toothed whales because all of their teeth are cool. Whereas narwhals only have one cool tooth.
Some narwhals have 2 of them.
Some do. That's true.
Some do.
I don't know. It's like a tie in different directions.
Yeah. I'm going with ginkgo.
Yeah.
And regardless, narwhals are cool, but their tooth is very boring shaped. So
yes, it's large, but it's not a good
long.
Yeah.
Tusk is boring.
It just the whole shape. Yeah, the whole tooth just looks the same the whole way along.
Yeah, like what's that about?
I love that so much, actually. So there we go. Amanda and all listeners, feel free to come to your own conclusions there. But those are what we propose are the 3 different sets of coolest teeth in the cetacean world.
Rosa Lott from Instagram asks, where and when is the best time to see cetaceans in Canada? Great question. For here in the West Coast, Salish Sea, it's usually between May and October. Gray whales are a little bit earlier, March to April. And if you are lucky and spend your entire day staring out in the water, you will also see orcas all year round. J-Pod was out today.
Yeah.
But again, you gotta pay attention. Mm-hmm. So if you're wanting to go whale watching, May to October is your best bet to see all sorts of different things. Mm-hmm. In the St. Lawrence, it's May to October. East Coast of Canada, July to September. And Hudson's Bay, where I will go one day, June to September.
Yeah, so basically summer.
Summer. Not really a surprise.
Yeah, both because the whales are there, but also because you can get out and see them.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. Our next question comes from Anita, who would like to ask about fin whales and their main characteristics. She says, I know they are the second biggest whales on Earth after blue whales, but I don't know much more about them. I hope to go on a whale watch to see them too. Yeah, me too.
Me too.
So we did a whole fin whale episode sometime in the past, and we will have a link for that in the show notes. But a quick summary. So fin whales have distinct coloration. They are black or like a dark brown gray on their back and their sides, and they are white underneath. But the most sort of distinct part of their distinct coloration is that their head coloring is asymmetrical. So they are dark on the left side of their lower jaw, and then the right side of their lower jaw is white. And then the tongue is the reverse of that, which is also weird.
That's so weird.
Yeah. Many fin whales also have several light gray sort of V-shaped chevrons behind their heads. And on many of them, the underneath of their tail flukes is white with a gray border. So these markings on their flukes are unique to the individuals, and so then can be used through photo identification to identify individual fin whales. Good luck with your whale watching, and if you do see some fin whales, we would love to hear your story.
Yeah. It feels like fin whales were like in the race. They're like, we're going to be the biggest, and then they lost, and they're like, fine, we're going to come up with really weird colors, but we're still going to be gray.
Yeah. Gray, but cool patterns.
Cool patterns, gray.
Very cool patterns that most people can't see because we don't spend a lot of time.
Because we don't do much.
Yeah.
But we're cool looking. Take that, blue whales. Yeah.
Your blueness.
So cool.
Like, silver medal in so many things, but
yeah. We love you, fin whale.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, our next question, also on Instagram, comes to us from Tiffany. Tiffany asks, I know a lot of information about orca brains, but struggle to find concrete research on humpback, gray, and other baleen whale brains. Oh, don't we all, Tiffany? Specifically, it seems like she's wondering, do they share similar components like the paralimbic lobe, insular cortex, and do they undergo gyrification? Well, Tiffany, listeners, Linz and Sarah.
Yes.
May I invite you into the deep, deep hole that is my Google Scholar search on cetacean brain anatomy.
Too bad it wasn't a really, really specific category on Jeopardy. You would win.
Right?
Yeah.
So good.
Cetacean neural anatomy.
Yep.
Yes. The short answer to your question, Tiffany, is yes, they have similar structures. Most mammalian brains, from what I was able to gather, have a paralimbic lobe and an insular cortex, and many mammalian brains go through gyrification. So the process of adding more layers to the cortex as it grows and learns. Woo! As for specific information about other cetacean brains, that is a much more complicated, and unfortunately, as frequent listeners to the podcast will know, we always strive to provide links to free to access research. Unfortunately, this is a question that is almost impossible to dig deeper into with free to access research, from what I could tell. I was able to find one fantastic free full article on humpback whales specifically, like you asked for, Tiffany. So that is The Structure of the Cerebral Cortex of the Humpback Whale by Patrick Hoff and all his colleagues. And we will include a link to that in the show notes. It has fabulous images of every nook and cranny of a humpback whale's brain that you would love to
ever want to look at.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's a really, really great place to start if you or any of our listeners are really interested in, neural anatomy. I could not find even a pay-to-purchase article. Sorry, that's the same thing. Like a pay-to-read. A purchasable article specifically on gray whale neural anatomy. I honestly, I just don't know if it's out there. I spent a lot of time trying different search terms, including both spellings of gray whale, as well as their Latin name. I just couldn't find it. That doesn't mean it's not out there. It just means it's very, very hard to find. I found a for purchase article specifically on bowhead whale brains. So since you seem interested, Tiffany, in baleen whale brains, this was called A Comparison of the Cortical Structure of the Bowhead Whale with Other Cetaceans by Mary Ann Raganti. And I'll include the link to that in the show notes. But again, just be aware that that is a purchase article. Now, for those of our listeners who are in academics or attending university or college or any sort of post-secondary institution, you may be able to access that for free through your university library catalog. Man, do I miss that.
I know, right?
It's like the only reason I would ever consider going back to school.
I'm sure we could find a better way.
Probably true. And then for those of you with just access to a library, if this is really, really interesting to you, I would highly recommend that you check out from your local library. Might have to go to a university library, but the Marine Mammal Encyclopedia. It was last published in 2009, so, it's due for an update at some point here. But it is, first and foremost, an incredible book. Wish I owned my own copy. I've only ever been able to use it through various professional categories where people I work with have it at their desk. Because it's very, very large and also very, very expensive if you want to buy one yourself. But they have an entire chapter in the Marine Mammal Encyclopedia on the morphology of the cetacean brain. And from what I could tell from the snippets I was able to access, because I wasn't able to get my hands on an actual physical copy of the book in the time since we got this question from Tiffany, there's probably a lot more information there to answer Tiffany's question. And finally, if you're interested in how we actually study cetacean brains, specifically like get images of them, then I did find a free article that looks at the neuroimaging of cetacean brains using computed tomography and magnetic resonance imaging by Brian Cott.
Yes, because as cool as it would be to study the brain of a humpback whale while they're swimming around, MRIs are still pretty terrestrial based.
Yeah.
And not able to go underwater.
Not yet.
So until they figure out a way to study brains on giant swimming things? Aquatic animals, we have to do this all post-mortem. So we only are looking
so much
at
harder.
The structure of these brains, but still cool.
So now we're going to take a quick break to talk about how you can help support the podcast and everything we do here at Whale Tales.
You can join us by becoming a patron at patreon.com/whaletales, patreon.com/whaletales. You can join us for $1 a month at the porpoise level, $5 a month at the dolphin level, or $10 a month at the whale level.
And then each level comes with a variety of perks, like polls, discounts on our merch, thank you postcards signed by all three of us whenever we get the chance to be together, which is rare but awesome. So it's also, those postcards are infused with our love.
Yes.
As well as our actual signatures. Plus, you can have access to extended interviews and stories with guests. You, if you are at certain levels, can produce your own Fun Flipper fact segment. And we have a new perk for our whale level patrons, which is access to our Whale Tales Watches special Patreon only podcast where we watch a cetacean or marine biology related movie. Our first ever was we watched Big Miracle, and then we talk about what they got wrong, what they got right, and our pettiest of pet peeves from the science perspective of some great and not so great Hollywood marine classics.
So just want to say thank you to all of our patrons. You guys are amazing. Thank you for supporting us. Thank you for sending in questions. Thank you for everything.
If you aren't able to support us financially, there are still things that you can do to help out the podcast and everything we're doing at Whale Tales. You can leave us a rating or a review on your podcast platform of choice, like Apple Podcasts or Spotify. You can also tell people about the podcast and just about Whale Tales in general. Tell your cetacean-y, science-y, podcast-loving friends, and so that they can listen and follow along too.
And you can follow us on social media at whaletales_org and send us your feedback so that we can keep making the podcast even better.
Now, back to the questions. Carl says, what does whale poop look like? And can whales fart? Whale poop
I would also like to note, Carl is a fully grown adult, not a child, asking these questions.
It's fine.
Excellent.
Everybody poops. Similar to birds, it's the first thing I could think of. Whale poop is pretty liquidy because it's a mix and it goes out into the water. It is a variety of different colors depending on what they eat. I know blue whales, it's like neon yellow. There's a video that I'll put on social of a blue whale pooping, and it's really gross because a blue whale produces a lot of poop.
Yeah.
Because it's big.
That makes sense.
And so the basic answer is it's pretty liquidy, but with some chunks that float. If you and people go searching, we've got Eba, the poop sniffing dog out here on the Salish Sea, who sniffs out southern resident poop, which scientists collect and study to study the health of southern residents. So it is collectible. It's just way less into shape than you would think.
And you gotta be fast before it spreads out.
You gotta be very fast before it spreads out and sinks.
Yeah.
So yes, poop, not poop emoji shaped. And as for farting, yes, gas exists all of the universe. Isn't that beautiful? Including whales' butts. The end. This is my poem that I wrote.
Beautiful.
Yeah, whales fart. We just don't notice because they're underwater.
Yeah.
And there's bubbles everywhere.
Mm-hmm. True. Amazing. Okay. Our next question is from Jade, who asks, can whales have twins? And the answer to that is theoretically yes, but it's never really ended in a successful twin live birth, as far as we know. There is some evidence, and we go into pretty extensive details. We did a whole reproductive episode. Was that a couple of years ago?
It was like episode 2 or something.
Oh, okay, ages ago. Yeah, so we did a whole episode on whale reproduction, and we talk about twins and multiple births and some actual like historical information about that. So yeah, we'll link that episode for you in the show notes. Because we definitely go into way more detail there, but basically, theoretically, yes, but practically, no.
It's just very hard to, like, if you think about what a cetacean calf has to do as soon as they're born.
Yeah.
They have to be able to swim and get themselves up to the surface
immediately.
To breathe.
Yeah.
And then keep doing that.
Big enough to be able to do that. So, yeah.
Yeah. That, the amount of space, if you think about human twins, they are often, not always, but often underweight at birth. Mm-hmm. And if you think about, and also twins are sometimes early. Yeah. So if you think about that and how that would translate to just the sort of viability of a cetacean baby, it's really, really hard.
And also they only have one parent, like father cetaceans are, as far as we know, not at all involved in any cases. Sometimes there's like other, communal parenting sort of that happens. But like the mother cetacean has to be able to like push them up to the surface, and they can't always do that with two also. So
no. Yeah. And also like the birthing process can take a long time, like humans. And so I don't even know how successful birth would be. Yeah. Like how many adult whales have not survived just because one is there and she can't really move. Yeah. And then it comes out and you got to deal with all that, and then it happens again while you've got this other one and you're trying to keep it up. Like it's
all kinds of
logistics are
for
too
so many
hard.
Yeah.
Impractical. And evolution does not usually favor the impractical.
Yeah,
that
so
is correct.
like, the same reason.
You're the ginkgo-toothed whale.
Maybe they're. I mean, sure, those teeth have a function. Yeah, like it seems like it's hard to know for sure because you don't know how many twins like don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Aren't successfully like carried to gestation in whales, but like it seems like it's even more random and rare than it is in humans, where it's like a manageable, doable thing most of the time to have twins. So
yeah.
I would be really curious to see, and I don't know that there's any way that we would ever know this because of just like the complete lack of success rate of twins, but like, what are the two different kinds of twins in humans?
Well, there's
fraternal and
identical. There's more types than that, but those are the two main ones. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, like I'd be curious to see even how that would work, like just cellularly, what kind of twins they would have been in the very few times that we know that it's happened.
Well, start working on that waterproof MRI machine, and we'll get there.
Well, they can do you can do waterproof ultrasounds. It's pretty easy.
I know
actually.
you can, but you got to find the whales.
You got to find the whales first. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you got to be like, "Excuse me, ma'am," and just like stick this giant thing on her belly,
please.
Yeah, and then you got to find the twin ones. So
yeah,
it's a lot.
And do some DNA.
Yeah.
And also, don't you have to stay still in an MRI machine?
Yes.
Well, not in this magical waterproof one that we're going to create and become rich like Tony Stark.
Amazing.
And then we can buy all the encyclopedias that we want. Anyway.
You get an encyclopedia. You get an encyclopedia.
New Patreon perk.
There we go. Oh, which is a great tie back to our last question, which comes from a patron, Dorothy. She asks, if you could come back to Earth as a whale or a dolphin, which type would you be and why? This question is for all three of you.
Ooh, that's a tricky one. I would like to come back as a whale now or in the future, not like 200 years ago, for starters.
Yep.
I don't know. Maybe a sperm whale? They seem very chill. They eat squid, which I remember being delicious when I used to eat squid. Yeah, I'm going to go with sperm whale.
Yeah. I want to be something very elusive that lives in the offshore, like that beaked whale off Japan that they've only seen once, just to keep people guessing and having to update that encyclopedia constantly because nobody knows what I look like, but I'm there. And they've only seen my skull once on a beach. And yeah.
So yeah, rare beaked whale. Nice.
Rare beaked whale.
Rare beaked whale. You get to go real deep down in the ocean.
Yeah.
You can find the Meg.
Yeah. I'll have all the secrets and I will know what kind of species I am, but nobody else will.
Amazing. I've been thinking about this. I've been flip-flopping on this all day in preparation for recording, honestly. And similar to you, Linz, I wanted to be something far away from people. That was my
first thought, is being far away from people. Yeah.
Yeah, just far, far away from people. And so I went to the Antarctic. And I was like, I do love orcas, obviously. I think they're probably my favorite animal of all time. Antarctic orcas are super, super cool. But then I couldn't decide on a type. It's like there's so many different types. So
you could leave that up to chance
in
this hypothetical.
That's true. That's true. I've settled on the hourglass dolphin.
Ooh.
Because I love hourglass dolphins. They are so cool looking. They have probably, to be fair, more of the temperament that I would do well in if I was to come back as a dolphin. I am a little maybe more energetic and loud than some other cetacean species are allowed to be. And they are also very, very far from people. And also similar to your vein, Linz, like we've only seen them, 4 or 5 times? Less than 10. I think less than 10, recently documented cases through Western science's eyes of hourglass dolphins. But I'd have so many buddies because they're usually groups of 100. That's my answer. I would be an hourglass dolphin. And I think that brings us to the end of our episode. We would love to hear any more questions that you have. We'll save them for our next mailbag episode. And we'd also love to hear what whale or cetacean of any kind you would like to be. I'm curious.
Yeah, shout out to the porpoises that didn't get any mentions there.
Yeah.
We love you.
Yeah. Sorry. be porpoises.
They're too low on the food chain for me.
Yeah, exactly. And way too close to shore.
Yep.
Yeah. Too many factors there. So regardless of whatever kind of feedback you'd love to give us, then we would like you to visit our website at whale-tales.org to find links to all of our social media handles so that you can tell us all the things.
You can also head to our website to subscribe to this podcast, check out our merchandise, learn more about supporting us and joining us over on Patreon, and you can read over 1,200 whale, dolphin, and porpoise stories.
That's whale-tales.org. Tales like the stories, not tales like the animal.
And if you've seen a cetacean, we would love to add your story to our library. You can click the share link on our website. You can contact us on social media at whaletales_org, or you can email us a voice memo and tell us all about your incredible cetacean encounter.
Finally, we want to acknowledge that we recorded today's episode on the unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples and the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations.
As well as, since I'm not in my usual recording place today, I am specifically recording on the traditional territories of the Lekwungen-speaking people, also known as the Songhees and Esquimalt nations. Thank you again so much, everybody, for listening and for supporting us. We love you so much, and we hope you have a whaley great day.